Fans, welcome to Sports Chat. We are back from our hiatus. Now that spring sports are going on, March Madness, a lot of stuff to talk about. Campbell County baseball's currently 3-0. Could go 5-0 if they beat Central today. I happened to run into earlier former Cougar and pro baseball player and currently with the D1 Training Center, Brian Chapman. And he said that Campbell County should easily beat Central.
Well, it's hard to say that because you never know in baseball. Baseball's the one sport where even the worst team can beat the best team on a given day.
You can't run the clock out in baseball.
You can't run clock, you can't run plays. You know, you might have 10 bad players on the other team, but all it takes is one good pitcher to make an even baseball match.
This is true.
So, you know, it's like that's why baseball teams, even when the best teams that win the World Series lose 40 or 50 games a year or something to the worst team in the league. It's just, you never can say for sure whether you're going to win in baseball. Campbell County's got a good team and probably should win, but just in those couple of game settings, you just don't know.
We initially planned to go see them the other day, but a terrible thunderstorm just kind of took the life out of that trip and the game.
They've had a couple of games rained out this week, I believe with Williamsburg. So every time Williamsburg comes down for a game, it ends up coming a big thunderstorm. Actually, it was quite stormy this morning, and maybe again this afternoon. Hopefully they get the games in.
Hopefully so. Now, Cougar Track has had one real meet so far, but what a meet it was. Kristen Chapman sets a school record in triple jump.
You know, a little over 35 feet. That's just a giant triple jump. I only saw one other person jump over 30 feet before on the girls' side of things.
Also, Shayla won in both the discus and the shot put in that meet.
Had several qualify for sectionals already.
I think Shayla has become when you go to the website, the Tennessee Runner website, she has become a national elite.
Cody Willoughby qualified, first time he ever high jumped 6 feet, and already qualified for sectionals.
So it's looking good for Cougar Track. And it being spring break, they did not take the full team with them. I don't think they ran any of their relays.
Yeah, a couple of the 1600.
I think Cody Willoughby was one of the 1600.
There's a bunch of people.
Kevin Ruan won the pole vault.
Yeah. Kevin's good at the.
He is an excellent pole vaulter. Also not a bad runner as long as he doesn't stop to fix his hair.
He's a good kid, a good athlete for Campbell County.
Softball team has their first game Monday in Clinton.
Yeah, girls have been practicing hard this year. Got a bunch of new players out. You know, hopefully they're a year better. Got some more experience. They had a tough year last year, and some of their better players, Courtney Morse, one of their best players, got hurt and ended up missing a bunch of the season. I'm not sure that she's playing this year.
Of course, Lindsay Tomlin, one of their better players, she graduated.
But in softball too, if you've got a good pitcher and good infielders, you can win. You have to have both.
And Campbell County's pitching staff should be a lot more experienced. They came back this year, so.
Yeah, if you field the balls cleanly, you should be, good in softball. Softball fast pitch is hard to hit. It's harder to hit than baseball, a lot of people say.
It is a weird pitch to me to try to, if you've played any baseball, you can get used to somebody's fastball or somebody's curveball. That fast pitch softball is just bizarre to me. The dynamics of the way the pitch travels.
The pitch travels upward instead of downward like in baseball. And it's just a big, rise balls. People strike out a lot on those. But like I said, last year, if Campbell County could have fielded cleanly in the infield, they would have won a lot more games. It's just, and hopefully, from what I've heard, they're better at it this year, and they got some new players who are better at it. It just takes experience. They're getting experience.
The tennis team will also return to action this week. They've been off since that early week where they lost to J. Frank White and South Doyle and then got rained out in another match.
Yeah. It's been a rainy spring, so getting into these spring sports, which are all outdoor sports, not easy. Football you play through anything except for lightning. If it rains, baseball, it messes up the infield, so they got to delay that.
Same with softball.
Yeah, same with softball. Track meets run in the rain, but not in lightning. Nothing goes in lightning.
Right. And, of course, basketball, you basically only worry about road conditions when
Tennis, you don't want to be out and around either. The courts get slippery, you fall, get hurt.
But hopefully it should be a good week for Campbell County sports. Middle school track is also going on. Also, as you all know, it is March Madness.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Tennessee didn't make the tournament. They flamed out in the SEC tournament. Kind of a tough loss to sort of a bad Mississippi team. That's been Tennessee's story this year. They're up and down, up and down. Looked like they were going to close the season on a big, strong up note, but instead they're in the NIT. I'm not, I guess you want Tennessee to win every game they play. The NIT, it's the irrelevant tournament.
They do play MTSU Monday night.
Tickets are $10.
General admission,
Free parking, general admission. You can sit down on the 5th row at mid-court if you get there early enough. It's wherever you want to sit.
Yeah, so I mean, go out and support them. If you've not seen a UT game this year, this is a good time. I mean, a lot of these players will be back. Go cheer them on. I mean, they still deserve your support.
They should return enough players. Now, I guess I can see them not making the NCAA tournament this year. I personally thought they probably should have. The SEC is way down this year. And, a lot of people were saying, well, we didn't have much coming back. But we actually did. Tennessee had about 7 or 8 4-star or better players coming back to the team, and added Jarnell Stowe. That's probably more talent than most of the teams in the SEC was able to field this year. So we probably should have made the NCAA. Next year, it should definitely make the NCAA. It should win over 20 games and make the NCAA.
As far as the NCAA goes, we've had 2 big upsets.
Yeah, it was the first time in 11 years that one number 2 seed had been beat by 15. And we had 2 in the same day yesterday.
Duke, a lot of people had Duke in their Final Four on their bracket. Same thing with Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri
They
was
were both gone.
very hot team, very trendy pick. Duke, people pick them because they usually do well in the tournament. Unfortunately, on my bracket, I didn't have either of them advancing that far or even close to that far. I thought Duke was personally a little overseeded as a 2, and they probably got the 2 seed on their name. And I didn't know anybody, that thought they were going to win the championship this year. They were clearly the 3rd best team in the ACC with Florida State and North Carolina. Even though they finished 2nd in the overall standings to North Carolina. Florida State beat them 2 out of 3 times. I think North Carolina did as well.
Also, VCU looked really good in the tournament so far.
Last year they made it, the Final Four, Elite 8, whatever it was.
Shaka Smart, he's an exceptional coach.
This is probably going to be his year to get a big job. I wouldn't be surprised if he landed at Illinois this year, or according to who leaves. Of course, there's the yearly rumor that Calipari's going to leave Kentucky, this time for the New York Knicks. I don't know if the Knicks would want him. He was not a great NBA coach, and shoot, at Kentucky, he just gets any player he wants anyway. He's playing with an NBA team every year. If Kentucky doesn't win it this year, they're heavily favored to win it at this point. If they don't, there will be heat on Calipari.
I would say you see Calipari on the hot seat at that point.
Yeah, Kentucky, you're fielding essentially a team full of NBA players. So if his approach is to replace the entire team basically every year, they're going to get tired of that if it doesn't work. They love winning the regular season. Anybody does, but if you get to the tournament and lose, it doesn't matter. If he wins, it may be irrelevant. He may go, he may stay. Eventually, the NCAA is going to come for Kentucky, and because they always come for Calipari teams, and he's always guilty.
I mean, Memphis,
No,
not the same. They once were.
That burned Memphis. It burned UMass's program to the ground. The shambles he left that one.
I mean, UMass is non-existent as a power.
They never recovered from that, and Memphis is having a hard time recovering. Lost in the first round. Essentially, Memphis gets into the tournament because they play in a very easy conference and win it. Next year, they're going to start competing in the Big East. You may not see Memphis in the tournament for a long time to come, even though they actually get good recruits out of Memphis because it's loaded with basketball.
Oh, it really is. And speaking of basketball, the TSSAA tournament's gone. Pretty much, the one team I was semi-following was Wartburg, and they're out.
Yeah, from what I saw, it was being dominated by the Memphis area teams.
That's generally the rule of, especially the boys tournament.
East Tennessee dominates in football for the most part, and West Tennessee, aka Memphis, usually dominates the basketball side of things on the boys front.
Also, the women's tournament starts day. UT is playing UT Martin. That should
be an easy win, but Tennessee struggled in the tournament lately.
right. They were, the Lady Vols are a rare 1 seed that's lost to a 16th seed. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, they have struggled in the tournament. That's not. Stanford lost as a 1 seed to Harvard. I'm not sure if the Lady Vols are a 1 seed when they lost in the first.
They might have been a 2 seed to a 15.
But it's the first time they've ever lost in the first round. But they have had their struggles lately. Pat Summitt's obviously not herself anymore. There's a lot of controversy swirling. She was supposed to retire to this year. Now there's been some talk that she may not want to retire yet. You don't know who's going to replace her as coach. I would have to assume it's going to be
Holly Warlick.
Holly Warlick, who's been there the entire 2 decades or whatever. But they had a lot of coaching chaos this year and not been performing that well. Personally, I would love to see them hire Gino Auriemma.
That would be something. I mean, he would definitely bring a few titles with him.
Yeah, that's not going to happen though. The main thing is,
I figure if they go outside the current staff, they'll look at Nikki Caldwell.
I don't see any way that if they were going to hire someone who played for Tennessee or whatever coach, they would hire one of the two that's already there now. There's no way they would go for Caldwell. And we'll see what happens with it though.
On the NFL front, the Peyton Manning sweepstakes is now down to 3 teams basically.
It's strange. Today on the radio, I heard it was Tennessee, Denver, and San Francisco.
Right.
And there have been rumors last week that San Francisco was out of the running because Jim Harbaugh supposedly threw a fit that he didn't want Peyton Manning. And Miami was supposed to be the 3rd team in the running. But they just disappeared completely. They apparently traded Brandon Marshall off for some reason, which is their top receiver. I guess that caused Manning to drop him, I'm not sure.
Peyton with the Titans would definitely cause an upsurge of Titan fans in East Tennessee.
Yeah, the Titans would probably really truly take over the state for at least a couple of years at that point.
I mean, the Titans are pretty popular in Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
But in East Tennessee, I mean, it's when you talk about Vol football, that's dominant, and of course everybody's going to follow the most beloved of Vols.
Personally, I'm always going to be a Cowboys fan and hope they win the Super Bowl.
Right. I mean, we've both been longtime Cowboys fans.
If they don't win the Super Bowl, I'm not opposed to a former Tennessee player winning the Super Bowl, which that usually happens because there's one on pretty much every team in the league.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe bet usually.
I mean, I would rather a few teams not win it. I'm pretty much for the Cowboys and against San Francisco. I would hate it if he landed in San Francisco.
That would be the one instance where I would probably not pull for Peyton Manning.
I couldn't at that point. Redskins, I would not pull for him if he landed there, but apparently they're out.
I would have pulled for him if he landed at the Eagles, but I mean, they were never really.
But really, any of the NFC East, I'm not going to
Right.
pull for him at all. And but yeah, we'll see. I would think Denver would be a good spot for him to land because their defense was absolutely dominating last year. He's never had a great defense to play with. I mean, their defense has put up good numbers before. A couple of times while he was with the Colts, but that was mainly because he kept the offense on the field so much of the game.
Yeah, it's actually the Colts' approach was generally the opposite of a lot of what you saw. A lot of teams want to keep the offense off the field, their defense just pounding on the other offenses. It seems like. Of course, you can lay some hurting on some offensive players that way.
In the Colts' case, their defense benefited from playing with the lead a lot. Other teams had to throw the ball a lot and became one-dimensional against the Colts because they would build up big leads. And that helped their defensive numbers some. But anytime it came down to crunch drives, the Colts never got stops. I watched them quite a bit over the years. They just simply did not ever get stops in crunch time. And it almost always landed on Manny's shoulder to outscore the other team.
And frankly, if Manning winds up in Denver, we get the wonderful Tebow Manning controversy.
That'll be the Tebow gets shipped off to somewhere else controversy at that time.
Well, it's like somebody posted on Facebook the other day, would you rather have a questionable Peyton Manning or a healthy Tim Tebow? I replied, I would rather have a dead Peyton Manning than a healthy Tim Tebow.
Manning at 80% is better than 90% of the quarterbacks who've ever played. Now, people are making a big deal over this injury, like he's going to end his career tomorrow. People don't study up on this or something. I'm not sure what the deal is or the radio callers. I know a lot of radio callers aren't that smart. But there are linebackers actively playing in the league who had the same neck fusion surgery.
And they probably
That
take
is-
the most brutal
That
hits.
is the most high impact, running back and linebacker are the two most high impact positions in football. Manning rarely ever gets hit and almost never gets hit solidly. This neck injury apparently possibly came about as part of the New Orleans Saints illegal hits, wipe out players bounty hunting thing they had going on. That's what Tony Dungy said. It seemed to happen in the game against the Saints a few years ago. And they're going to get hammered for this just unmercifully by the NFL.
And, you know, you figure their coach will wind up suspended.
I think that their coach is going to get a 4 to 6 game suspension. They're going to lose a couple of draft picks.
Huge fines.
Yeah, big fine, probably around $1 million in fines for the coaches and the team. And, you know, it's going to be a bigger fines and bigger penalties than New England got a few years ago for their cheating scandal. Because that's, you know, they take their player health seriously. And that's really something you should never violate. If you can legally knock somebody out of the game, that's fine. But apparently, from what I've been reading and everything about it, the Saints were doing it on illegal hits. And the hits that they were fined for after the game or penalized for during the game. And just what it was considered dirty play by NFL standards, is how the Saints were doing it.
Well, you know, that's what I would expect from people from New Orleans. It's a dirty city.
But Peyton, if he lands with Denver, like I said, they have that dominant. They carry Tebow. I mean, Tebow, people got Tebow mania, Tebow credit. It's not as hard to win in the NFL game when your defense is only giving up 7 points a game. You know, when the game's 9-7 in the fourth quarter because your defense has played hats off and you lead your team 25 yards to get a game-winning field goal at the end of it, you get all the credit and glory.
Now, I had some arguments on Twitter with some people over this last year. I'm like, you know, as long as that defense is at Denver, of course Tebow's going to look good. But when they had to play the Patriots,
Yeah.
you saw how ineffective he was. Now, I'm by no means a Patriots fan, but they had some high power going on.
The Patriots are the team that you generally had to outscore. The defense of the Giants actually held the Patriots pretty well, but they see the AFC defenses a lot more and know how to play against them. But in Manning's case, he would probably be, I hate to say it, and I would hate to see it, he would probably be as well off in San Francisco as anybody because the NFC West is awful. It is dreadful. You're going to walk through your division, just like San Francisco did this year. You're going to walk over your division, win it easily. That's going to get you home field advantage probably throughout the playoffs because of that. And you got a good road to the Super Bowl that way. I'm not sure how he'll clash with Harbaugh or not because Harbaugh's this brilliant offensive-minded quarterback who became a coach, and Manning is, of course, Manning. And some people have said that they'll let Manning install his offense, which, you know, his coach's offense was his offense.
Absolutely. I mean,
Harbaugh probably wouldn't be willing to do that. But Manning would probably work with the guy, I'm sure, if that's where he ends up. But Manning knows what he's going to do, and he'll end up in what he feels is best for him. Like I said, I think Denver would be a good spot because of the defense. Tennessee would be a good spot if you want to sell jerseys. And Tennessee's probably willing to give him the most money. I'm not sure how much it is about money with him because he's probably worth $200 or $300 million.
yeah. Yeah, really, with him, I imagine he's looking at the talent that can get him back to the Super Bowl.
I can imagine.
And Tennessee's the least of three in that race.
Tennessee's biggest draw is probably the fact that they have Chris Johnson.
But by that same token, they had Chris Johnson. San Francisco's got Frank Gore. And
Gore's been a little injury prone over the years and a little older than Johnson, but I'm not sure that matters to Manning because he's probably only going to play 3 or 4 more years.
yeah, it's, you know, it's going to be interesting the next few days as far as Peyton goes. You know, that's pretty much it this week. Next week we'll hopefully have a lot more local sports to talk about because spring break is over. Fans, thank you for tuning in. We'll actually be back next week, same time, same channel.